Hi everyone, welcome to Becoming. I'm your host Elena, and today we're really happy to welcome Jessamine to join us. So, Jessamine, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Jessamine. I'm a second year student at UC Berkeley, and I'm currently majoring in psychology and cognitive science. Um, yeah, that's pretty much about me. And also, I went to high school in Vermont for like 3 years because I transfer as a sophomore there. So pretty much like 3 years. Um, yeah.
Well, that sounds really interesting because I like personally, I really like psychology. So I think because it's just really cool. When I was small, I used to think that if you learn psychology, you can learn how to read minds. But actually, I realized it's not that true. But I still think it's like a really interesting field of study. So we're really happy to have you here today to share with us some of your experiences and
Sure.
how you developed your interests. So
Mm-hmm.
first, can you please share 2 to 3 interesting or like meaningful activities that you did during your high school years? And how these events actually helped you to develop your interest in psychology.
Yeah, sure. I would say the first one that is the most meaningful to me would be a little psychology project, like a social psychology project that I did during my junior year. That was for my psychology class. So basically, it's like for social psychology, and then we were trying to like examine a phenomenon named conformity. And then like this phenomenon is in which like a person changes his or her behaviors or opinions in order to fit in a larger group. So I feel like probably you guys might hear something about social psychology experiments, since there would be a lot of YouTubers have done this kind of like experiments and then publish them on YouTube. And there was one that was really shocking to me before, was that there were like two people and they pretended to hold like an imaginary glass, and then they're trying to ask those pedestrians, they're trying to ask those people to not get through them, like um, since they're holding an imaginary glass, they're trying to pretend there is like a real glass there, and they want those pedestrians to bypass them. So pretty much that's the that's one of the ideas for conformity. Um, and then if you wanna um, let's say they finally did it by asking those people to bypass them instead of like to getting through them like in the middle, since they're holding like the glass. And then for my social psychology project, I got inspiration from that, like the one the YouTuber were doing. So basically, what we did for our social psych project was to like ask several of my friends to be our volunteers. Um, and then what we did was to pretend there is like an imaginary rope in front of the library gate. Like we recruited like 10 volunteers for this, and the first volunteer would pretend to be stumbled and fall because of this imaginary rope, and then he would shout to the people behind him and then warn them about that imaginary rope, and the other volunteers would pretend to cross over this kind of imaginary rope carefully. And then we would plan for our true subject who would walk at the end of the crowd. So to see if we could succeed in this project, is that whether that true subject could eventually like cross over the rope instead of like just walk straightly to to the gate, like to the library gate. And that was the social psych experiment we did. um yeah, I feel like that's a lot of information. I'm not sure whether I describe it like straightforward for you. Is that?
Yeah, because I think it's really interesting. So first you talked about how you saw this YouTube video showing that
Mhm.
like so they were actually pretending to hold this imaginary glass right in between them.
Yeah.
And then they actually asked like those pedestrians to actually walk past them and they pretended they had the real glass there, right?
Mhm.
So for that experiment, did people actually believe them? And
Oh yeah.
oh, they did.
Yeah, the pedestrians, they actually thought there was a piece of glass, like a huge glass they were holding, since they acted it out like really well. I
Mhm.
would say because it required a lot of acting skills, and they have to like hold it there to like make it real.
Mhm. Oh yeah, so that yeah, because that's really interesting. Because like I would think, because normally they would think, okay, adults maybe won't get tricked, right?
Mhm.
Because there's nothing there. Actually, like that shows us the importance of psychology, right? Because there's
Mhm.
actually like how what someone else says might actually influence your behaviors. So and then you went into talking about. Oh, so then you carried on talking about how you started this project with some of your friends, right, about that rope experiment. So that was using using a similar concept, just like the glass one, right?
Mhm.
So did your friends believe that there was actually a rope existing there when there was actually like there isn't one?
um like my friends were actually my volunteers, so they would have to pretend there is like an imaginary road there, and then we are trying to trick um like some stranger. Like we actually asked for a student that we didn't know, who
Mhm.
was studying in the library as well, to join our experiment. So we pretended we were doing a film project, and that's why we were like setting up cameras to record our experiment. And we were basically saying like, you're one of us, and then we need you to like follow our instructions, something like that, and to trick him, to let him believe that we were not doing like some kind of psychology experiments. Because that, like, if he's thinking like he's like participating in one of the psychology experiments, he
Mhm.
would be alerted, like, because we all know psychology, like we need to test for like humans and then how they think or something like that. So yeah, but
Mhm.
we did debrief
Mhm.
afterwards. So we basically explain about the concept of conformity afterwards. So he totally got that, and then like didn't really feel embarrassed.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think, yeah, through this, because I'm actually really amazed by this experiment. Because, like, I think I've heard a lot about, like, different psychology experiments going on, but this one is actually really interesting. Like, how something that doesn't exist might make someone else think that, like, it actually does exist. So it's like, oh, it actually gets into some field of psychology and philosophy, maybe even.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's a really cool field to, in like, I think yeah, because like I personally find it really interesting. So it's definitely a really cool field to
Yeah.
carry on with.
because
Yep.
like because like people tend to conform to a larger group. So even though they think they know the true answer, or like they believe in themselves, but they will still conform to the larger group, since they don't want to be a weird person, or something like that. So
Right. So I think that was a really interesting thing that maybe developed some of your interest in psychology, right?
mhm.
Did you have any other experiences, like for example, job shadow experiences that also gave you a further like developed your interest in psychology?
Yeah, definitely. So I was doing a shadowing work with one of the doctors who focus on child clinical psychology, basically. at a mental hospital in China. So that was the time, that was the summer before my senior year. So I spent like a month there shadowing that like the child clinical psychologist, and then I met a 16-year-old adolescent. Basically, we also call him a patient, and he was suffering from depression. And his parents got divorced when he was only 8 years old. So since he was a child, he had to work like extremely hard at school to gain his parents' attention. However, his parents like just took his hard work for granted and never gave him the attention he deserved. So everything he worked, um, so he worked really hard. He studied um, really hard, and then he got a really good grade, I would say, for his high school examination. So basically, high school entrance examination, and he got like sixth place, I guess. Yeah, sixth place, like citywide. So basically, he ranked sixth in his own city. So he basically he was qualified to join, like he was qualified, and he was accepted to one of the great high schools, like one of the best high schools in China, like national wide. However, his parents wasn't really satisfied for his performance, and they were thinking like, um, why couldn't you just get why couldn't you just rank the first in the exam? So pretty much his parents like pushed him really hard since he was just a child, like since he entered elementary school basically. And then he was and he knew that he didn't do well, like didn't do well in his high school examination. So he was trying to he was having some suicidal thoughts by biting his tongue. So he was asking his parents like he was basically saying like, I really want to kill myself because of my bad performance. I want to bite my tongue, something like that. Is that okay for you guys to?
Yeah, I get it. So like basically,
Okay,
yeah, you can
yeah,
continue.
because I feel like it's kind of like hard for a 16-year-old boy to
Yeah.
do this, and yeah, I feel like it's really hard. And also then his parents was like his parents actually were more worried about um like his current condition would harm his academic performance instead of his own well-being. So I was kind of shocked, like, because some Chinese parents, like some parents didn't really wasn't like, some parents weren't aware of the importance of mental health. And then yeah, I feel like he's like a tragedy um of his parents parenting style, since pretty much like his parents was pushing him too hard, and then let him feel that academic success is everything basically. So that's why he was depressed, and then even would develop to depression someday. And I feel like it's really I don't know, I feel really sad when I was meeting with him. um, yeah, so I was thinking to like study clinical psychology. So basically that's one of the branches of psychology, to help adolescents like him. So I just want to, I don't know, I just want to help um, adolescents that like I just want to tell them like like academic success is not everything, and I just want to tell their family members that they shouldn't push him too hard, since there would be a harm to their mental health. um, yeah, I feel like that 16-year-old boy is a really important person for me to like to eventually be determined to pursue psychology as my major.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think from that story actually really touched me because I think like we tend to hear about stories where, okay, so like maybe in some cultures they
Mhm.
might think that like having good grades and like it's everything. But actually like from your story we actually got to like I feel like I was a part of the story even, and I got to see what it was really like for like an individual to actually like it had a really big impact on him. So
Mhm.
yeah, I was really, really touched. And I think from the story and what you're trying to say, what you're trying to pass on is really important is that like it's not just about like the grades that rank a particular person. And there's a lot more to just like getting like 100 or I don't know,
Yeah.
1600 SAT or anything like that. Because like I think there's so much more to a person. And I think that's also one of the main reasons that I started this channel is to actually help people develop their interests and maybe just to find out like who they really want to become and how they can work towards that goal. Because I think apart from grades, like I mean a person, it's not like measuring how much water you have or something like that. Like you can't really measure like who someone is, but it's all about what that person wants to do in the future and what he or she wants to become. And actually I think having your own interests and aim and actually working towards that, I think that's a really great thing in life. And in general I think, yeah, I mean grades, I think from my perspective grades are there to help you
Mhm.
because they're there to help you to improve further to like reach your goal. So I think like it's really important for parents, for example, to really have a right way in guiding their children or child to success. And I think that's really important. So yeah, thanks so much, Jessamine, for sharing that story because I think it was really meaningful. Yeah. So thank you for listening to the first phase of this interview, and then please stay tuned for Jessamine's next video about sharing about UC Berkeley and more about psychology in UCB. Thank you.
Thanks.